Yeah, I don't know. It's like the railroads. I mean, I think they're a waste of time. Why put the money into them? But then if I don't buy them, like every time I go around the board, I'm landing on a railroad. It's like it's just gonna happen. If the Polar Express was on the board, I would land on that railroad. Anyways, so we're playing some Monopoly on a snowy, icy, cold winter day, and wanted to send this video out and talk to you a little bit about some of the things we've been discussing in the recent sermon. I think it's helpful. One of the things we've been talking about, and it's kind of like using the idea that life is like a game. And Monopoly is a good example because if you played Monopoly more than once, or just kind of had some kind of passing familiarity with it, you probably understand that the idea of the game, the object of the game, the goal of the game is to be rich. Accumulate the properties, build the houses, build the hotels, make deals with your, people you play with, and be rich. And the richer you are, the better you're going to do at the game. That's kind of simple. That's kind of straightforward, and we kind of get that when we sit down and play this kind of thing. Sad thing is that a lot of people think that's the object of life, real life, not just a game you play on a Sunday afternoon. And so that got me thinking about this parable that Jesus told. Jesus would tell these parables to show like a very big point in a very short story. And so he tells this parable in Luke chapter 12. And so anyways, it's about this guy, and he's a farmer, or I shouldn't say a farmer, he's more like a landowner, because they calls him a rich man. And so he's not your average guy. He's not just a farmer kind of, going about his ordinary day kind of stuff. He's not your everyday farmer. He's a rich landowner. And what happens to him is that he comes into this harvest that is so great, and this is Luke chapter 12. He comes into this harvest so great that it's just going to blow his mind. It's so much more than he's ever planned for, so much more than he's ever had. He's a rich man already, and he's used to making a good crop. Well, this thing is just explosive. It's so great that he's thinking about, well, how am I going to, handle this? What do I need to do? And it's so much of an abundance that he decides, well, I'm going to tear down the storehouses that I currently have for my crops. And so by the time they're harvested and everything's ready, it can be put into these bigger, better storehouses. So I can accumulate all of it and take care of it. And then he says, after I do that, I can say to myself, you've done it. You've made it. Let's just eat, drink, and be merry. This is the life. I've done it now. And that sounds like to a lot of people, that sounds like a good plan. That sounds like, wow, if I came into this windfall, what would I do? They start talking about spending time on a beach and holding a drink with a little umbrella in it. It's just, that's my retirement. That's my, way to put my feet up and just relax and just enjoy life. And then it tells in the parable that God speaks to the man after he's made this decision about what he's going to do with all this extra that he's invested. And God says, you fool. Calls him a fool. He says, all these great things that you're accumulating and you've got these big plans, it's coming to an end because your life is about to end. And then who's going to get all that stuff? And so Jesus tells this parable to get this guy's attention in the parable, so that they'll see that that kind of a life is not pleasing to God. Because he was a rich man already, and he's been given even more so. And he only thinks about himself. And so what happens very quickly is, with this message from God to this rich man, is that now who's going to get everything that you've built and saved up and stored up? Everybody else. You're not getting any of it. And then at the end of that, he says this phrase, he says, this is how it is for everyone who is not rich towards God. And that's what we're called to be. We're called to be rich towards God. That's our purpose. And we say, well, what does that exactly mean? Well, rich, that's something of great value. And not only do you have great value of something, whether it be money or property or whatever, not only do you have something of great value, but you have an abundance of it. That's a rich person. Well, this guy in the story, he's a rich person, but he's rich towards himself. He thinks of himself as wealthy. And people around him, his peers, they probably see him as wealthy because he has things of great value and he has an abundance of it. But he's not rich towards God. Because what does God value? He values things like faith and humility and compassion and being charitable. That's the kinds of things that God values. And to have an abundance of that, then you are rich towards God. And that's the object of life. Do we have things in our life that make us rich towards God? Or are we like the rich man? Rolling the dice, collecting our properties, building up our money, but only rich towards ourselves and others. When one day our life ends, we only get so many trips around the board. We only get to pass go so many times. Will we be rich towards God? I hope that gives you something to think about.